if you think about what influences human behavior here, the desire to change has to be greater than the desire to maintain the status quo, to remain the same. And that's where I think chief marketing officers, they have their pulse on what's going on in the quote unquote real world, what's going on in the marketplace. They're like the front line, if you will. And I say that front line gets even stronger when there's a collaboration between the marketing team and the sales team. And collaboration, as we've talked about on this podcast, is not just working well together, it's co-creating together. And if you take this idea of co-creation to a whole new level, don't just think co-creation internally with just the sales team, think co-creation too with the marketplace even, and co-creating with account holders, co-creating with prospective account holders. And what is that going to require? It comes back to this pyramid of marketing. It's going to require that you listen and learn, go all in, ask good questions, listen to what they're saying, learn through observation, and then based upon that knowledge, then you can communicate that back out into the marketplace. But yes, your point about change, it is hard, it is scary, it is painful. That's the whole reason that I wrote the book Banking on Change as a follow-up to Banking on Digital Growth. Empathy is going to go a long way, particularly internally when it comes to a chief marketing officer, let's say, helping others navigate the complexity of change. Because I think there's a lot, and this is such at a subconscious level, there's a lot of belief systems, there's a lot of belief structures that are being challenged, that have been challenged, particularly since 2020. That is manifesting itself as people are saying that they're tired, they're burned out. They're like, can we just get back to normal? And it when you study history, and as we do through a digital anthropological lens, we're not going back to anything that it was before. And I think people philosophically know that, but emotionally they haven't caught up. Their heart hasn't caught up to where their mind is. And so there's a miscongruence, or they're not incongruence and that creates that conflict, that creates that chaos, that creates that friction and frustration that so many feel. And so when we look at this through a formulaic approach, this is something that I'm writing about in Banking on Change. EQ plus AQ is going to be greater than IQ alone in the age of AI. And what I mean, EQ we know is an emotional intelligence. AQ, not a lot of people are thinking or understanding what this is just yet. That's your adaptability quotient. That's your ability to change behavior. But if you're going to change behavior, what do you have to change? Go all the way back to the core. You have to change your belief systems and structures. And so when you change you're being empathetic, you have a higher EQ, you increase your AQ, your ability to adapt to environmental changes, technology changes, belief systems changes. Both of those combined are greater than just IQ or traditional intelligence alone. And there are 4 steps I would say a CMO can guide their internal team through. Step number 1 is they have to help them see things through a different perspective, is education. So almost in a way, the CMO needs to think about being an experienced engineer internally, not just externally. How can I help others internally see marketing through a modern lens, particularly in the age of AI?
Like creating a common language.
Creating a common language, exactly. And not just establishing the common language, practicing it.
Yeah.
Keep coming back to it.
We hear that over and over again, that it's this getting everyone together, creating a common language. And I love one of the things that you talked about before, it's this idea of the growth team, right? It's marketing and sales really working together. Did you bring service in on that too? Marketing, sales, and service?
Yeah, I mean that would be the third element, if you will, that unites the experiential front. What I find though is there is a stepped or tiered approach here. Think marketing and sales alignment. Once you get marketing and sales alignment, that is the growth engine. Then you bring service in, that becomes an exponential multiplier to the growth engine. But if we're trying to focus on all three fronts at one time, it can be an exercise in complexity and chaos and conflict.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the when thinking about our program and we talk to those who have been in it and been
Mhm.
out of it. And I mean, one of the biggest things they say that they walked away with and they still have it's this common language and everybody kind of understands each other and marketing finally feels understood and validated and heard. I mean, we set in maybe it was a little over a year and a half ago, we set in on I set in on a workshop that you were facilitating the entire organization, and you were talking about marketing, and you could see those like in our big Zoom room,
Mhm.
you could tell those who are in marketing because their faces kind of started to smile a little bit because you were talking about this subject, and they were like, in their minds, like, yes, like they're listening. And they would go out in breakout rooms
Mhm.
and there would be people in sales or in service or on the executives team say, "Oh my gosh, I did not realize this." And you just felt this unity. Like they all just kind of came together and understood each other.
Yeah. And that's the point of also, once you establish this common language, you have to continuously come back and practice it at least once every 90 days, which is we have our 90-day growth method. This isn't my idea. I mean, this is just me observing human behavior through other contextual lenses. I mean, even down to my kids. I think about my daughter right now. She is teaching herself Spanish on Duolingo, and
Oh,
she's practicing and she's applying. But if she doesn't come back, if she takes a couple weeks off, you can see a regression in her progress. And so while I'm not advocating that, marketing, sales, leadership teams, service teams come together every single day,
right.
creating a pattern and a cadence to break free from what you're doing, to pause, to reflect, to review, to learn, to think about how to do even better, that will guarantee continued progress and alignment going forward into what can sometimes right now, as we're hearing, feel like tough and turbulent times.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about marketing, the role of the CMO before
Mm.
and how it's evolving today, what would you say are some essential skills now that the CMO person really need to have to succeed and move forward? Because I think this role may not be cut out for everybody. It's very well possible that there's going to be some changing roles as people kind of evolve out of this, role and new.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say younger, but just fresh thinking comes in. What are some of the changes we're going to see in what that skill set that CMO marketer needs to have?
I mean, we could look historically and think of this as, and I think that's the whole perception of why, particularly in financial services, there might be some executives or senior leaders who view marketing as kids that play with paint and crayons because they look at this as the quote unquote the creative department.
Yeah.
There's definitely more. There's an opportunity to focus more on the human factor, to focus on areas of study like psychology,
Mm.
sociology, anthropology, you know, the the people side of things. Uh, there's the old adage: if you walk a mile in someone's shoes, if you've never walked in a mile in someone's shoes, you don't really know how they feel. Being able to bring that empathetic perspective, the voice of the customer, but not just the voice of the customer, also the voice of the employee. See, there's another possible collaboration here between marketing and what it was historically like HR, because I've been very big about activating internal advocates to be micro influencers, whether they're leaders or lenders or advisors. But that's going to take a collaboration between the marketing team, the sales team, maybe the HR team, to work through some of those complexities there. Definitely you've got the data and the analytics piece of this. There's obviously going to be the AI perspective. um I I think the AI is coming down to how how good can you ask questions, basically.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not about what you know, it's about what you don't know.